It is just lovely to be here and my amazing panel today, well, they're not mine, they're your amazing panel, to talk about diversity and parity. This is coming to all of us. We all have to acknowledge that many companies and countries in the world are going to make this part of our legislation, part of our requirements for doing business for RMCs. How do we as an industry get through this, and how do we make it better for everybody? I think we should, Magali and I have worked on a few little statistics, but I am going to take you to 2015 in the UK. There was a lady who is a Danish, British comedian called Sandy Toksvig, who decided that she was going to create a parliamentarian division just purely for women, because she'd gone into some statistics and looked at the FTSE 100. And at that point in the FTSE 100, there was exactly seven women in top jobs in the UK. And you think, not too bad, that's fair enough, until you realise that there was 14 Davids, and in fact 17 Johns. So if your name was David John, you were really going to be ahead of the ball there. So we figured that probably that was as of 2015, and I don't believe it's changed dramatically since. However, it is on everybody's, it is for everybody now to understand that we need to move forward. And I had a perfect example this morning from a gentleman who's had a discussion with his 16-year-old daughter, and he'd been, oh no, well, you know, things are different, and women do this, and men do that. And she said, but Dad, if there was no gender, there would be no gender pay gap. And he had no answer to it, and I thought it was brilliant. So is it a generational, where the generations think differently? In our own industry, Magali has very kindly gone through every major company in the FIDI, our FIDI family. And as it stands at the moment in terms of CEOs, we are at a 25-75%. We think we're doing good, and we have a lot of women in this industry, a lot more certainly than when I started, and it's wonderful to see. But how many of them are reaching the top? Not enough at the moment. So with that being said, my panel will introduce themselves one by one, give you a little bit of background. If you don't know, my name's Simone. I've been around a few years, but on our generational side, we have the lovely Juan, who will now introduce himself.
Hello, everyone. My name is Juan Guillermo Diaz. I'm from Intermar Shipping, Colombia. I'm 32 years old, and I'm very happy to be here and open the discussion about how my generation looks at this subject specifically. So it will be a pleasure to talk a little bit about it. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Linda. I'm from the Haan Relocation, Holland. Mother of three, 43 years old, responsible for the household unit in our company. Honored to be here, honored to be asked. So this is a subject which is close to my heart. So I am looking forward to seeing where we can go with the discussions.
My name is Ben Ivory. I'm with the Grable Companies. Been with Grable a number of years. I don't think we have a requirement to say our age to start, I don't think.
I thought it was good.
But I'm very pleased and proud to be here. Had a chance to do a number of things with Grable over the years, and more recently, part of our sustainability program, which there is a connection and a tie for DE&I, and so looking forward to our conversation.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Natasha, and I'm a workaholic. And that's something very tough for someone from my culture, from where I come from. So yeah, it took a while for me to explain to people why I work so much. So I'm looking forward to giving my opinion on a lot of those subjects.
I'm Derek Duffy with Armstrong Moving in Toronto. You're a FIDI board member. I'm 50. It's funny how you share your age, right? Because we were in a meeting with the RMCs and the sustainability sort of team that we pulled together, and I confessed my age there, and then all of a sudden there was this almost obligation, or people feel obligated to share their age. So we're in this like full confession transparency mode here. I won't give you all the details of my personal life, but I'm 50, my daughter's 15, Juan's 32. Anyone else want to share? Anyone else good?
Absolutely not.
Okay, I'm
Not even close.
69. Let's get it on the table.
Based in Canada, arguably one of the most diverse countries in the world. Super proud to be Canadian, and really looking forward to our engagement here this morning, so thanks.
Excellent. So our first question, I'm going to direct at Juan this morning. What is the definition of diversity from your perspective, Juan?
Well, for me, it's a very large and wide subject, you know. Diversity means a lot of things. But in just one word, it will mean representation, you know. Diversity means to be represented, to have a space in the community where you belong, where you can talk about your differences and understand those differences. And, you know, it's not only what is the definition, it's what is the importance of this diversity word. Because it means that the skills of those people that come from different backgrounds are going to improve your process through the decision-making time, you know? So basically, for me, this definition is on regards of who is representing who. It's how our differences are represented in a community, and then you can see the different challenges that every one of them have inside their community. So that's a little bit my definition about it.
Anybody have anything else to add to that? Or do we like the definition of diversity?
Yeah, it's very spot on, actually.
Yeah.
But diversity also in countries where, let's say, that are less progressive, right? I mean, I don't want to give, exact name of countries, but it could mean a lot of things. It could mean a lot of other things. It could mean, difference in pay for the same amount of work you're doing, right? Isn't that the case? Yeah, but I agree with him. I agree with you. Very good explanation.
Excellent, brilliant.
Can I just jump in?
Yeah.
I do think that it's hard to get consensus on definitions, and these are terms that are now being used often. And it's interesting also that when you say in a conversation DE&I, somebody may pause you and say, well, remind me what that is. Mm-hmm. So people are just even starting to get comfortable with what the terms are. And so I think it's going to take a long time for really consensus. And I think we recognize that it's going to mean different things to different people in different countries and different cultures. And so, therefore, there needs to be dialogue like this.
Absolutely.
In order for us to really get a better common understanding.
And I do think we look at it in slightly different, through different eyes as well, based on our generation as well. You being the older generation there at 50, Derek. So, Linda, let me come to you. Do you think there's a generational divide? Do you think I'll lead that into that at all?
Well, I think with the Han being a company that's 245 years old, it's part of the company. But I think it's a very positive thing because the company is very true to their roots, and with the older generations of the knowledge and the expertise that's in-house has brought in a whole new generation. And working together, the old views versus the new views, which they're teaching each other. So I personally think, yes, if you look at the numbers, there's a divide, but in the way we handle the work, the way we work together, learn from each other, I think that the real hard divide is slowly changing into something due to all the new ideas of the younger generations. And not just younger generations in age, but also the way of thinking. People have changed in the years, opening up, looking through, I guess, a different set of glasses with the whole pandemic that we've had. It's given us a chance to really take a step back and look at things from a different perspective. So in the case, yes, there is a generation divide, but that would just be the numbers for us.
I would just chime in on a specific example we have in our organization recently where we stumbled upon our benefits provider. So that's sort of like our, you know, our supplemental health care. In Canada, we have basic health care, of course, that is paid for through our taxation system. It's free access to health care. And then in companies, you have sort of an extended benefit program, which covers things like, you know, dental, you know, massage, chiropractic, all kinds of different therapies, et cetera. And we were looking at it, the policy, we were looking for a refresh on it, and then we had our, the number 2 gentleman in our company is a 30-year-old CPA, chartered professional accountant, and he came in and said, you know, you guys are looking at this the wrong way. You know, it's not really about the benefit. What we want is the choice. We want the options of it. And, you know, we've got these, you know, our ownership group is a little bit old and it's a little bit undiverse, if that's a word. And all of a sudden, it opened up a completely new lens for us to say, you know, what choices are we giving them? And the program should not be about legacy and what we've always done. More importantly, what can we do to make this program a retention tool for our people, to attract new talent? We are in a war for talent. And there's things that we need to do with this generational gap to listen to this younger generation to help define how we're managing and leading our companies. Because these additional programs really are what attracting people. The salary that we pay them is what we pay them, and that's going to be agreed to. It's what they say. Like, we want options. So one of the things he was saying is, you know, for example, could you give it so that we could have, you know, maybe some access to some concert tickets or some preferred sort of restaurant maybe coupons. And this is all part of the benefits program. And it put a completely new lens on it for us. And I think it's a very slippery slope and a trap we get into when we think about these legacy programs, like the benefits program in your company. It's there, you have your benefits consultant, your provider, they have the program. But we need to sort of stop, pause, and reflect on these things and say, are we really speaking to the people that this is serving, as opposed to just running with the program that we've always run with? And I think it just really opens up the lens a little bit when you give access to this younger generation. So the generational divide is slippery. When you think about the transactional day-to-day, we all collaborate, we get things done, we move people from point A to point B. But when you peel away the layer and you start looking at, you know, the values of your company and what you're offering and how you compensate, because I'm not sure about you guys, but I spend a whole hell of a lot of time on HR. Moving is easy. The people are where the challenges lie. And that generational divide, I think, needs a deeper look, peel away the layers. And I think there's things we can do in our organizations to adjust and adapt to help attract and retain. I think that's the game. That's the game for us.
Absolutely. And
come
sorry,
closer.
Ben, please.
I think I'd like to replace the word divide with differences. That, you know, there are definitely differences from generations, how people perceive things or approach things. And I think one thing from DE&I, the talent that we're trying to attract, which Derek, you're talking about, is very interested in DE&I. And so and that's, in my opinion, a good thing. I think we do have to be careful not to say, well, I think the young generation is more interested in diversity than the old generation. I mean, I would take exception to that. And so I think we have to be careful of putting people in boxes. I know that's what we do for a living, but I don't think we should do that in this category.
However, you know, may I jump in? Yeah. However, I think the difference is basically that younger generations are not afraid of speaking about it, you know, and I think that that's the main difference. Because, you know, most of the time when you say something about this subject, people is especially trying to pull back, you know, they think that they're going to say something wrong about it. When you talk with, may I say, older generations, or they think that it's something that could be wrong or that has a negative connotation of it, you know? And I think that that's the main difference, because if you ask a child what he thinks about this, he's going to say, but there's no difference between Anne and Paul, you know? It's going to be exactly the same. But through generations, it's like the conversation is stopped. And that's the main difference for me, you know? That, for example, in my company, I'm able to talk about this. We have this safe space that we call safe space, where people can talk about their differences. And it passed through also the decision makers. It goes to me in an anonymous way. So I know that something is going on, you know? I know that something is happening because at the end, it's true what you said there, guys. It's about retention too, of this talent that now it's so complicated. The industry is changing and people don't want to stay in the same job. They don't want to do the same things. They want to have different experiences through their job. So I think that that's one thing that we can do, but at the same time, there is a different vision of it in the sense that we talk about it and we don't retain our conversation about it. It's just open, it's there, and it's going to be more and more like that because kids are starting to do it more and more. So I think that there is, as you say, it is not divided, it's different, but it's different in a way that it's open, so we can talk about it.
If I may add, it's good to see, especially within our company being around a lot longer, that the mindset that everyone is open to having the conversation, even though it is a difficult topic, but trying to see and work together and just start that communication. It all comes down to the communication, making it possible to talk about and bringing people together because it's not the divide, but the difference is the best word, but bringing them together and why is it different? What can we do? What do you want? What do you need? The different topics, putting them together in the basis of communication is just the key, and that's where we start.
So first of all, you're saying that you're actually recognizing that there's an issue.
Absolutely.
And then we're trying to offer some practical solutions.
Absolutely.
So, I mean, can you offer, Natasha, any practical solutions that you may have come across? You may not have been able to implement yourself, but you may have come across.
Well, I want to give an example. Even in our company, when I first wanted to do sales, my own father said to me, I don't think a woman can do that. So there's a generation gap for you. So I had so many hurdles to jump myself. And so, yeah, there is, but you have to fight for it. You have to fight for every day. So I feel sorry for all the other people who are just employees in a company and trying to get through to their bosses or to their, So yeah, it was, and then of course when I wanted to be in management, we're not so sure, maybe, even in my own company, so I can understand. So what is the solution? You have to fight for it. Young people have to go and ask for it. And nowadays it's difficult to find people to hire, let alone, to keep them. So yeah, speak to people, be close to them, understand their talents, understand their needs. And but you have to fight for it. It's the only way.
I was just going to layer on to pile on to Linda's comment as well. I mean, many of you had the chance to meet my daughter. She's with me today, and in leading up to the conference, I said, "Honey, it's going to be pretty cool. Dad's going to have this panel on stage. You can see your dad up on stage." She's like, "Oh, Dad, I'm actually having a diversity, a DE&I panel at school like next week." She's second year of high school, and this is part of the curriculum. Yeah. So again, here we are. I mean. The education system, certainly in our part of the world, has embraced this. The awareness is super high, and you've got kids today that are way more equipped and way more open to communicate on this, and if you are closed on it, forget it. You're not going to be able to, it's really going to be a difficult challenge for your organization if you don't embrace it, open and create that communication Linda you spoke to. When they're doing it at the fundamental level, it's written into the curriculum in Canada to discuss this. And create this awareness and equal access for all. And I'm not just talking about, of course, there's the gender issue, of course, but of course you've got the 2SL LGBTQ+, I think is what we're calling it now. And don't ask me all of those are, but there's a group there that is important. You have the Indigenous and Aboriginal in some of our countries as well. You have the gender, you have visible minorities, you have the racialized. It's a complex web, but the conversations are starting at the high school level.
Do you think COVID has had an impact in how we deal with this? Because we've been forced to make more decisions in a short period of time that perhaps in the past would have taken a number of years, but COVID has pushed it to the fore. Yeah, Ben?
Simone, first of all, just a little bit, our organization has gotten larger, so we're right about 1,000 employees today. And so how do we organize? How do we deal with this issue? And I think fortunately, I think in 2018, we recognized that this was something important to our employees and for our clients. And so we named a woman named Valencia Colbreth, who's our DE&I champion and helping build our programs, then created a council that is made up of 26 of our people that are in the 3 regions. And so it takes organization, and they work on the topic. I do think when you say COVID, I think a lot of the emphasis was the George Floyd incident or tragic occasion in 2020 that really made, I think, organizations say, okay, you have to have specific things going on in your organization, especially larger companies. And so I think, like sustainability, that is pushed organizations to say, okay, well, what are you doing specifically?
I mean, from my own experience, I believe that the ability to work from home, or that now we have the hybrid effect, will be very much more conducive to bringing young mums back into the workforce, women that perhaps didn't have that option, but also people who are not quite so mobile. We now have they have more of an option of working from work. If you have an office that's not equipped for people with mobility issues, you now have the option to bring them into your workforce because they can work from home, which perhaps we didn't have before, because we are now more open to the working from home, and it's a practical solution to bringing them into the workforce. So do you want to take the next one, Derek? So once you've achieved diversity in your team or organisation, how do you make the minority groups not feel different? Not that different is wrong, it's just different, but you want them to feel included.
Yeah. So I think, while I'd like to think that our organization has made a big effort in diversity, we are more than 50% of our staff are born outside of Canada. We have fluency in over 15 different languages. We have incredible diversity. But I'd like to think that's a unique situation for our country. But my fellow Canadians, if there's any here in the room, I can guarantee that their demographic is almost the same, just organically. So I think diversity for us in our organizations, from the cultural standpoint and from the visible minority standpoint, is almost organic. It happens in Canada almost naturally. The challenge that we face in our company is that even on the gender parity side, we have more women than men employed in our organization, but we have a leadership team of about 12 or 13 people, and there's one woman. And we had this leadership team meeting, her first meeting, and our IT guy, he calls himself the IT guy, by the way. He says, what's your title? He says, I'm the IT guy. Very official. But anyways, he puts up this slide, and it's, for those of you of my vintage, or our vintage, if you will, there's the Brady Bunch show. Anyone familiar with the Brady Bunch? Yeah? And they have that, this, I'm not going to sing, but this is a story of the man named Brady. And then there's like there's these quadrant of like 9 kids, kind of, or a family of 2 and all kinds of kids around. And it's almost like they're framed on the picture, and all the families there. So we did this with our leadership team, and it was all middle-aged white guys, except for Jamie Wong. Thank you, Jamie. Is Jamie in the room? Yeah. And Jamie calls himself the token Asian guy on the leadership team. But then there was a woman, one woman, and it was just such a flash of reality for us that the challenge we have in our organization is we want to have more women on the leadership team. I can tell you, we are stronger with it. The FIDI board has great diversity on the gender parity side, and I can tell you the discussions and what we come out with is much more fruitful. It's more focused. We're more serious. We have some fun, but I can tell you we're a better board because of the diversity. Our company is hampered, and because of our leadership, our leadership group is too male dominated. There's a few of you here. Poo-poo on us. We need to get better at that. The challenge we have is we don't have the people coming up. We don't have the talent in the organization. And truthfully, many come up and they're showing signs, and then they start a family, and their priorities change, and they kind of almost don't want that. So we know the fruits are there if we create the gender parity on our leadership team. We are struggling to get there. It is a real struggle in our organization. So we are open to suggestions on how to work that, but it's a problem in our organization. It really is. So while we have incredible diversity in our company, within that diversity category, extreme challenges on the gender parity side at executive management level. And that goes all the way across, I think, many organizations around the world. You know, in Canada, the Canadian government has started something called the 50-30 Challenge. And they want 50% of Canadian boards and executive management and leadership, they want 50% gender parity. That is the goal. And they want 30% of Canadian boards and executive management to be of the racialized, disabilities, SLGBTQ+, I'm sure I'm missing something there. Then there's, you know, the indigenous, there's black, people of color, all of that category, they want 30%. So there's this great initiative in Canada. I bet you not many people know about it. And they've got so far signed up 1,000 companies, which is absolutely embarrassing. We are not even one of them, to be honest with you. I've stumbled into this program. It's of great interest. There's funding available from the government for it. So the governments are embracing it. The schools are embracing it. But the real day-to-day challenge exists in our companies. It is a real problem for us to get women into leadership positions. And we are struggling with it.
Natasha has something else.
One of the reasons women have children is because men cannot have them. So it's not like we can have conversations like, honey, let me have the first one, you have the second one, and then we can see who's the better parent, or, you know, better yet, who can be a better breadwinner. So maybe if women were given some flexibility, you know, if they can manage maybe some days from home, etc., maybe they would want to be in leadership. I think, you know, women have most of the responsibility. Every day somebody comes in our office and says, I need to go pick up my child. And even as a woman, many times I'm wondering, why isn't your husband going? Why are you going?
Yeah.
You know, what is his job more important? Is he getting better pay? So it's always the woman who has that responsibility, and that's why they don't want the leadership roles, I believe. Woman, here, anyone?
Well, Linda's about to do a dance there. She's like, yeah.
Well, being a mom of 3, the youngest being 14 months, you know, it is possible. It is possible, but it's the biggest challenge ever to make sure it works. You have to be so structurized, you have to have programs, you have to have backups here and there. So I think it's not a question of, you know, I think there are a lot of women who really want leadership roles, but I think the question that we need to ask ourselves is, okay, why they're not taking them, but what do we need to do to be able to make sure that they can take those roles? I know in the Netherlands, they're finally looking at parental leave for the fathers. You know, it's a difficult thing. In every country, there are different rules, different laws, different possibilities, but it's true. If my son is sick or my daughter's sick, they call me. They don't call my husband, they call me. And you hear it, that it is changing, but it's not changing quick enough. But I think maybe it's also a little bit of the unknown. Well, if women do take the leadership positions and we do make things happen, that the child care systems are working better and that there is a better backup system, okay, what happens if we do take all those leadership roles?
That's the panic, though, isn't it?
No, I think it's just a bit of the unknown. And, you know, the questions need to be asked, you know, why are the women not taking them? Well, I think a lot of the reasons and the answers are already here. But how can we make sure they are able to take them? What can we do to assist them? And again, the conversation needs to be had. The communication, it needs to go fluently to be able to discuss it amongst ourselves. That's something that's, but yeah, like I said, as a mom of 3, it's more than a marathon.
And, you know, as a small business owners, when people are going on maternity leave and trying to fill that gap, you know, if somebody, we've all been there as a small business owner, when somebody's come to you and they're a key part of your organization and they're pregnant, you know, I'm delighted for you, that's wonderful.
Yeah,
but you know that that's going to be a gap. And how do we then fill that as well?
just you speak about the paternity leave being discussed in the Netherlands. Of course, I think even some of the Scandinavian countries are very advanced in that. You know, we had recently in our organization a couple of gentlemen that took paternity leave, and I am embarrassed to say that there was stigma attached to that. That you're a man, and you're taking paternity leave. That's you know, we didn't quite, not your career is limited, but on the reverse side of that, you know, women are conscious about taking maternity leave and how that's going to impact their leadership. They might change their focus in life. They are shifting to family versus work, all very natural. On the reverse side of that, you have, when they do introduce the paternity laws, all of a sudden then corporations are saying, why paternity feels uncomfortable? Isn't that a maternity thing? What's this paternity thing? So it's almost like it's a complex. We're complex beasts, huh? We can't win for trying. You introduce paternity, and all of a sudden the organization is going to cap and limit that person's growth because they took paternity leave. There's examples of that in Canada where some people, and there's cases in court to say that my career path was, I was racialized or restricted in my company because I took paternity leave. So it's a very complex piece. I think what we need here is this, like most of these discussions, it's about awareness, it's about continuing the discussion and allowing for the leadership responsibilities to change. If a woman or a man decide to take paternity leave and their role is changing at home, then can companies flex with that to change the leadership requirements in order for the organization to continue to grow? But right now, we're still stuck in this leadership role. You're available 24/7. You've got board meetings. You've got people responsibilities. You've got P&L responsibilities. There's no time for anything, no nonsense. You have accountability. And I think as organizations, we need to start flexing with those leadership responsibilities in order to allow for this sort of balance, if you will, between the genders of family responsibility.
And you know, I think it's really important. There are many things that are going on in my head right now. But I'll try to break them down to 3 things. The first of them is the selection process, you know, the HR process. When you're going to look for a new position in leadership, you have to be really clear about what you're looking for, you know? Because if you're not clear about it, then you're not going to have that diversity that you want to have in your board, you know? So I think that that's really important. At the beginning, you should go and talk to the people and say to the HR director or manager or vice president, hey, I really want to have a take on this side of this way, this kind of skills, this type of person. Because at the end, it's not a matter of if it's a man or a woman, it's about skills and how those skills can be navigated or passed through a position where a woman can have those skills. So I think that that's one first thing that for me is very important. In our company, we are 12 directors, or there's a board of 12 people, and out of 12, 9 are women. And for me, that's crucial, because it's my decision to have that composition, you know? And it's not only because I want to be diverse, it's because I think, honestly, that the leadership process is very important, and it should be different right now, because it's a male-dominated culture. So it's important to start changing that way of seeing things, and I consider that very important. The second one is, we had this conversation with my HR director about, oh my God, someone is going into maternity leave, what are we gonna do? And we were talking and we came to a conclusion that was apparently simple, but it worked. And it's to have a backup plan. You have to have backups. And that's probably one of the main issues, is that you're not thinking about who's gonna cover other one's position, you know? You're always relying on the person that is in front of you, but you're not thinking about how someone can come and take over for a while. Because it's not just only maternity leave. It could be that you're sick, that you need a time off, that you do burnout and you need to go to an island, relax, and have a therapy. It could be
Does
many
your company
things.
provide that?
Sorry?
Do you provide the island to go and have therapy? Can we
Not
join
yet,
up?
not yet. So I think that that's very important to have a backup plan, because that's one of the main issues. You're relying on someone and you're making a lot of pressure on that person to stay there. So you're contradicting yourself. You're giving a speech of freedom, but at the same time you're saying you have to stay in that position. So that's controversial. It's not the right way. And the last one, and I think the most important one, is the organization culture. It's how you understand the culture of your organization. Are you willing, for sure, to make this process from compliance to commitment? Because it's different. It's very different. You have first a conversation, that you have actions that go through the process of understanding how the culture is going to change. And that's very, very important.
Thank you very much. That's nicely done. So on that one, I'm going to leave the last question alone. I think we've pretty much covered it. And go to the audience if anybody has any questions. Oh, we have somebody with a hand up. They will come to you with...
Hello. So I was wondering about, in terms of recruitment processes, because the people that we're trying, less so with gender parity, but in some degree still, but if we look at marginalized groups, from 10 years ago, education systems were just as bad as we're struggling with in terms of getting talent in now. They weren't approaching and supporting people from diverse backgrounds and getting the best education. That means that we've got a very limited pool to kind of take from as well when we're saying, right, we need degrees, we need these qualifications, we need this, because there's not been an ability for people to get to them, because it's been a patriarchal system or a racialized system or whatever it is that's stopped people going into that kind of educational system. Do you think we need to review the way that we're actually trying to reach out and saying, do we need a degree for this job? Do we need this qualification for this job? Or actually, are we better looking at who are we trying to approach and what are we trying to get from them?
We're lucky even if we find,
Yeah.
we're lucky if we find people nowadays who want to work. But you had something to say?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think that when we traditionally look at recruitment, we're looking for the candidate that best fits our need. I don't think we write into that recruitment strategy to say this person must be racialized, person must be a female or male. I don't think we're there. I think one of the things that I've learned over the years is the value of having the diversity. And so you think you're hiring for a particular skill set that you need, and you want to match that skill set with the competencies required for that particular job, and you're trying to make this sort of work. And you're interviewing the candidates, you're grading them, and you're trying to find that match. And I think one thing that gets overlooked in that recruitment process is the sort of the unknown, the secret sauce, if you will, of the diversity element. You know, in our organization, we've hired so many first-time Canadians, let's say, giving them their first-time work experience. So new immigrants to Canada, many organizations say, you're not going to get a job in Canada unless we want to have Canadian work experience. We want to have Canadian work experience. We think that's a great pond to fish in because nobody wants them almost. No one wants to give them that first chance. I can tell you we have won time and time again by hiring a first-time Canadian because they're coming in from a different culture, different education system, and the diversity and value and the thought process they bring, sometimes a bit wacky, I'm not going to lie, a little bit wacky, but sometimes wacky's good. And sometimes wacky is what we need to shake up the restricted kind of lanes that we're in on this stuff. So I would say that I think all of us, including myself and our organization, needs to lend view to that diversity element and that je ne sais quoi that they bring that might not be written in their CV, that might not be extracted from the interview process, but that sort of attitude and behavior and that cultural differences they bring. And I don't think that's a measurement on the scale that we measure to say, well, what are their what cultural differences will they bring to the organization to help us see things differently? And I think that we could all probably go down that path and have some great success. Yeah, I'm not sure if that's an answer. or
We've
not,
just
but
been on a recruitment drive, and the skill set in terms of directly fitting what we wanted is ostensibly non-existent. Doesn't exist. Certainly not in my market. So we've basically now gone down the road of forget the skills. I can teach the skills. I want attitude. Yeah? Are you happy-go-lucky? Are you looking to learn? Do you want to be part of a team? They are the skills I'm looking for, not can you turn a computer on. That I can teach you, but I can't teach you to wake up and come to the work every day with a smile on your face. I hope to create a team that you want to come into with a smile on your face, and I will teach you the skill set. But it's now more about attitude rather than direct skill set.
Yeah, because that's from the question, that's exactly it. Because when you look at like a field of engineering, women in engineering, it was shown that universities were actively only getting men into universities for engineering 30 years ago. So there was no female talent in engineering for many, many years. And so the whole process had to be looked at and said, look, this is why it isn't happening. We have to go back to education. As companies, we have to go back to universities and go, you need to be better. And so in terms of that, it's how do we then in this industry go, are there people not getting into these universities? Are people not getting into these accreditations? Because, there's no interest. Because guess what? They've been marginalized. They've been told that, women don't load boxes, so don't go get that accreditation, when actually the diversity of thought and the diversity of action kind of supports that. But, sorry.
No, brilliant, thank you. Anybody else? Steve? Your daughter has a question.
don't ask her.
Clara, I've seen you. I saw your hand. I'm coming to you next.
That'd be dangerous to it.
Yeah, extremely.
You've all spoken about how women often make different life choices. Sometimes because they choose to make those choices, sometimes because maybe they feel they have no choice. I don't know, but to make different life choices. So I think, Derek, you were saying about an organisation, a government thing that was trying to encourage 50-50 parity. Now, it just strikes me that if inherently women do make different life choices, that 50-50 parity may be unrealistic. And I just wonder what you think might be a more realistic sort of level, taking that into account. But also, as we, in our efforts to try to redress the balance, how do we ensure that we still promote on merit? Because I don't think anybody would support tokenism. And I just wonder what you all feel about that.
Steve, still promote what?
On merit, based on merit only.
Got it. Okay.
Rather than the fact that you're trying to get the balance on the board correct.
Sure.
And you want
So
the best
not
people.
a box ticking.
You want the best people.
Yeah.
You don't necessarily want people because they are male or female. You want the best people. Yeah. And if women are making choices that in effect write them out of that equation for whatever reason, then you're never quite going to get there. So I just wonder how you make that judgment.
I'll take a first crack on that, but it's funny. I liken it a little bit to the sustainability question and this rush to sustainability we have, and this rush to DE&I that we have. And corporate world, corporate America, corporate wherever has put this incredible pressure. Governments are putting pressure on society to embrace and change at like tomorrow speed. And you know, I reflect on what my children are going through in school, and many of you have children here and family. The education system is doing some heavy lifting for us here. Heavy lifting with creating this awareness and through the education system. So at some point, and maybe it's a hope strategy, but there's going to be some sort of evolution or organic change over time because of the education system and the awareness that's happening. And can we get a little pass or reprieve on having everything in place for tomorrow? You know, this is a journey we're on, and if Jessica Deutschman's in the room, she's going to say, walk fast. And I think she's right. But there is an incredible pressure on us to make change happen tomorrow. And my personal humble opinion is that I think change is coming. We're doing all the right things in creating awareness and discussion. And do we have to have it all ready for tomorrow? So your question around, you know, the Canadian government, it's 50% gender parity and 30% significant movement to getting visible minorities in that category, yeah? Gender parity at 50-50, it seems like the right thing to say. But I think that it's almost like the society is going to take us there. We're going to create this education, we've created this awareness, and there's going to be an evolution towards that. If it's 50-50, terrific. If it's 60% women and 40% men, terrific. But do we have to have that absolute, like, debits and credits matching and it balances out and we net zero? This is not an accounting process for me. It's more around create the education, people are going to make choices, let's do the right thing. And we don't have to necessarily put a number on it. That's a personal opinion.
No, but I agree with you. Shouldn't it be something that we are looking to attain? It may never be attainable, but at least it's something, it's a goal to work towards, even if it's not ultimately something that we can do. But if we don't set the goal, how do we know we've got to get there in the first place?
Yes, but women should not be punished for the choices they're making.
No.
So if you decide that you want to have a career and be an amazing mother, you shouldn't be judged for that. Just like we are judged in my society. You can't do both. You can't be a great mother and be a career woman. Maybe one of the reasons, you know, that I didn't have kids, not because I didn't, you know, my career was more important, but I didn't want to be a failure. And that's what they tell you. If you're going to be a workaholic and work many hours, you're not going to be a good mother. So you will be judged.
So we get
and
judged
women are judged.
both ways.
So I
Yeah.
think probably saying a lot of the same things, maybe a little different way, but I think we're hearing the word journey often, and I think we all should recognize that we're not starting the journey. A lot of our organizations are down the road, and many companies, FIDI affiliates have been led by women, and a lot of women in the room have juggled these responsibilities and proved that they can do a lot of things. So there's a lot, in my opinion, a lot that is done, but we all, I think, would all agree, I think everybody in the room would agree that there can be more, we can do better.
Room for
and
improvement.
focus. And so I probably push back on just saying when you get there. I don't think you'll ever get there. I think you'll always be striving, and whether it's for diversity or equity or inclusion, I mean, all these things are very, things that are probably the rest of our lives and our kids' lives will be pursuing. So I hope we tried to answer your question.
And Clara.
Well, I think, Linda, you want to add something?
Oh, and Clara?
Sorry, can I add something?
Yeah.
I think it's something that also, a lot of people before us have fought for their rights and being able to make choices, and it's something that's created the awareness. It's not natural. It's not part of our DNA yet, and I think that's something, and I really applaud the younger generation for it. I know you shouldn't say it that way, but for them, it's not really an issue anymore. It's part of them. So I think it's a transitional period that we're having, and I think this question is a good one, but I think this question will probably not even be asked in 20 years from now. So I think it's a process. It's something that we can't do by tomorrow, but we're starting to go through the whole journey, like Ben said, and it's a process, and I think in about 20 years, it won't be the issue that I have to make a choice. Okay, I want a career, but I have 3 kids. Can I do both? Yes, I can, but it's difficult, so.
I want just to add that it's very important to know also that this proportion of 50-50 or whatever the number is is because it's a way also to create the space, you know? And this is why they put these numbers there, because they have to make a space in order to the group to go into the number, you know? But it's not necessarily because it has to be 50-50 or 40-60 or whatever the combination is. It's because it is important for the beginning of the process to open a space where people can go and be represented. And that's the point. It's what you said. Probably we won't talk about this anymore in the future. But right now, we're building a space for people to get that representation, either if it was a women or whoever is there.
Did Clara get her question?
That's all for the session today.
Clara, you will have your time in the sun. Can Clara ask the question, please?
And Marcel, I think that's okay.
And Marcel, after that, please.
I just wanted to speak back on the women in leadership roles. And at school, we do learn about how women have advanced their rights in the workforce, and it's built into our curriculum. And I believe that when women have high executive leadership roles as CEOs in companies, it is important as they act for role models for other women in the company to later come up in those leadership roles and act as a role model and an example for women to come up. And that's why I feel there is this gap right now, that there are more men in the workforce because there aren't those women to act as role models in the first place. And also to add on, I have a question for my dad, of course. What would you tell me if one day that I came to you saying that I found out that a man, my colleague, was making more than me? What advice would you give me also if I faced discrimination in the workforce as a woman?
Well, as a parent, I would take one reaction, and as a business owner, I would have another. So which answer do you want? As your father, I'd go and rough them up. No. Gosh, she's got good questions.
Tell you what, Clara, we're all going to be looking up to you very soon.
Yeah.
Thanks, panel.
No, I mean, I think it's a question for the panel too. So I think I will allow the panel to address that too. I mean, when we have those situations, they happen. I mean, in Canada, certainly pay equity is legislated, and it's becoming more and more, I will say, audited in terms of pay equity. I think it's a value system that you have in your organization and culture. If that's happening to you in your organization where you're doing the same job, but the pay is not the same, you address it and it's not corrected, then you're in the wrong organization, and I would say go look somewhere else. It's a value system in the organization. It's legislated now by governments, I think, probably certainly in the West, and globally, I'm sure. But I would say if that does not fit your value system, and you think you're not being compensated correctly or discriminated against for some reason, you would address it, because I know you would address it. And if it's not corrected, then you move on and you find the right environment in which your skills are appreciated and you're valued.
Tasha?
Go
What,
first.
you? No. Yeah,
No.
I think you.
Yeah, I mean, usually when they come to me with those questions, and it's happened many occasions, the answer is usually based on experience, how many years they've been with the company versus the other person. It's capability as well. Sometimes you have to say something to them that they don't want to hear. We had a very recent case where there were two girls in our accounting department. One of them said, "Why am I getting more than the other," etc. And even though they're both female, the obvious answer was one was definitely smarter, but obviously I couldn't say it in those words. But I said, because all those years you've been in the company, you haven't made an effort to learn more than what you're doing. So you're getting paid based on what you're doing today, whereas the other person has, progressed. And so now she's taking extra classes, etc. So, yeah. So you have to sometimes be honest. Honesty hurts, but it's the truth. And it doesn't matter if it's female or male. It can happen to two females in the same department who are not getting equal pay for the job they think they're doing the same thing, but it's not always the case.
Marcel York has a question.
Any more? Marcel.
Yes, just wanted to add an aspect. So we heard a lot about the challenge of, finding more women into, bringing them into leadership roles. And I think the answer might lay in redefining how these roles look like. We're defining leadership roles by equal hard work, long days, amazing hours, the workaholic aspect. I don't think a leadership role needs to look like that. I think we should tolerate and create leadership positions that it's totally acceptable to have 8-hour days, even part-time, because what we're looking for is intelligence, wise decisions. We don't need people to copy and paste data in these roles. We don't need to do routine-based work in these roles. And if you just define the role differently and tolerate and create the culture of it's okay to take holidays and not do emails at the same time and actually switch off, it's okay to not work on a weekend. You're actually going to grow more and do a better job in your leadership position if you have a decent work-life balance and if you have a family that works out and you're not going into personal problems and separation and all that stuff. If we redefine that role, women and mums automatically qualify much better into a different aspect of that. And I'm struggling in my own leadership team to nurture that culture, to create this, it's okay to work less. I have not denied a headcount request from any of my team members in years, and yet I see them all constantly being overworked. And I'm thinking, like, why are we not succeeding in, reorganizing our time differently? Because that's not sustainable, what we're doing. We need to be healthy and balanced, and then automatically you're probably attracting more women and other talent, and even young men. Some don't want to work, 14-hour days and 6 days a week and so forth. I think we're going to be a more attractive employer if we get to that. Just an aspect, not more, happy for you to take on and see what you're thinking about.
So Marcel, you probably said it better than we said it or could say it, so I think it's a great point. I do think we probably covered the whole issue of how our companies have changed during COVID. And I think most of our companies, I know our company, now realize knows that it had to empower our people to manage their schedules, to perform, and there's no time clock, and there's, I'm sure people are working in the evenings, changing their schedules. They've got their children and their dogs on their laps and on Zoom calls. And I think it's been extremely exciting and positive. And so our organization has performed very well in this environment. So I think we're all learning. We've learned a lot, and we'll probably continue to learn. Kind of maybe some of these things that we talked about work hours, yes, or children, or picking up your kids at school. Maybe these things have sort of been proven to be different. And it's going to take probably a while for us to really understand what the new work world will be, and hopefully, I think it's positive. So.
Yeah.
Anybody else? No? If that's the case, thank you very much to my panel. Enjoy the rest of the conference, and you've been brilliant. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.